So we've touched on this a little bit up until now. I'm going to explain it in detail before we go any further. So we've looked at inserting hooks first against an open turtle. Now we're going to look at inserting our hands first against an open turtle. When our partner's in an open turtle, what we're looking at is where our partner's elbows are. If our partner has open elbows, it's much easier to go underneath the armpits. And if our partner has relatively closed elbows, it's much easier to go over the armpit or over the shoulders. Okay? So what I mean by this is if our partner has high and open elbows, it's incredibly easy to go under and grab wrist or get to full claw grips. But if our partner has closed elbows, now it's much easier to go up and over the shoulders and lock backhand and arms. Right? Typically, when you're in a live situation, you try to lock a backhand and arm. For example, if she has an open elbow and she connects her ear to her shoulder, it's hard for me to lock a backhand and arm. But now there's all space on this side of her her body and separation between the shoulder and the ear, and it's easy for me to go underneath the armpit and create the space and lock in and get claw grips and go to single wrist on the far side. Okay, so now we can start combining grips to go in with not just single wrist, not just claw grips, but we can go in and combine our grips in like so. If our partner, if I feel like my partner's going in, and now my partner connects her opposite ear to her shoulder, and she closes this elbow, so I try to lock a claw grip from here, now it's impossible for me to lock up. But now, because the claw grip is impossible, it makes it incredibly easy for me to pull my arm out and move to a backhand and arm. Okay? So we play this dilemma with my partner, where if she has open and high elbows, it makes it easy for me to go underneath the armpit and lock in on my partner's wrist or with claw grips. If my partner has closed and tight elbows, it makes it hard now for me to go underneath and get any kind of claw grips or wrist grips on the near side, but it makes it much easier now for me to go up and over the top of the shoulders and lock in with backhand and arms. Okay, so just so we can understand this, I look at my partner's elbow position and I play according to where my partner's going to go. And then we can get either claw grips or backhand arm and start to break our partner down and throw our hooks in second. So now we're going to start to move into putting our hands in first to the upper body and then breaking our partner down to insert hooks second. So now we're going to look at inserting our hands first. All right. When we put our backhand and arm in against an opponent who's playing an open turtle, we still have to break our partner down before we look to insert hooks. Okay. So when I put a backhand arm in, I want to look to break my partner down to a hip. All right. We can break our partner down to a hip or to two butt cheeks, and we'll take a look at both. So when we put our backhand arm in, we want to make sure that we have a good connection of our chin to our partner's far shoulder. And now to break our partner down, we want to have initially one leg stepped up. We want to put our knee in front of our partner's elbow as a wedge. What this does is it prevents her from further opening her turtle to base out over the shoulder. When I go to knock my partner down, in the previous sections, we were pulling our partner in this direction, in line with her hip line. When I go to knock my partner down in this section, I'm going to break my partner down over the shoulder, diagonally out in this direction. That's why I have to put a wedge in front of my partner's elbow first. So I lock up, I slide my elbow forward, and I come in front of my partner's elbow. Now, I can't physically push my partner's elbow in, like this, but I can block my partner's elbow from being able to base further out in this direction. Now when I lock up, I post to my right foot, and I use a closing of my right elbow on my partner's hip to start rotating her in this direction, and I use a pulling of my body out in this direction to knock her down to a hip over her left shoulder. And now we're down in position. Now there's two things that can happen. Number one is your partner can turn towards you, and you end up in a double seated position, where now both of us are on two butt cheeks. If she bridges into you and she brings her knees away from the chest, she just gives you two hooks. If not, then you have to work on inserting your hooks, like so, like we talked about. So she brings her knees up to her chest and the elbows in. If I just try to throw my legs over, it'll be useless. So I have to lean to one side, insert a heel inside my partner's hip. When she gets to keep that knee-elbow connection, we can always insert one hook. And now we fall down to our hips, with a bottom hook inserted, and then we work on, like we talked about, inserting that second hook. That's the first option. The second option is the second you break your partner down, she can immediately start trying to turtle back up. Now, if I keep my backhand and arm, I don't really have an ability to put heavy weight onto my partner's hip. Okay, so she can keep her bottom leg into her chest and come back up. Now I have no ability to insert my hook. So I look at my partner's reaction. If I break her down and she turns towards me and stays seated, now I insert my hooks. But if my partner goes to turn away from me and move back to a turtle position, I relinquish my backhand and arm and I put weight over my partner's hip with a shallot tight waist once again. So now, as she goes to get up, I post my hand on the floor, and when she goes to get back up, she has to scissor the legs, and as she reclaims turtle position, now we have our first hook in place, and now we're right back to square one, where we can start to break our partner down, go into power halves, and go into winning positions. Okay? So, everything's starting to come together now. We have our partner down in the turtle position, open turtle. We go in with the backhand and arm, and now from here, we're going to block our partner's elbow. As we block our partner's elbow, we push with the back leg to bring everything over the shoulder, out diagonally in this direction. This will knock my partner down to a hip over the elbow. When she goes to open that elbow up for base, she can't. If she turns towards me, now we look to start inserting hooks because we're both on our butt and we have 2 butt cheeks on the floor each. If I knock my partner down and she goes to get back up, we go right back to the hip. Now she has to scissor the legs, and as she does that, she always pulls me in. And now I have 1 hook back in, and now we're ready to go, whether she has an open or closed turtle. All right, so we insert the hands first when we can't put the hooks in, and we use our hands to knock our partner down to a hip, and use that to insert our hooks, either when we both land on 2 butt cheeks, or she goes to turtle back to her knees, and I put weight over the hip and force a first hook in. Now, we're going to look at an opponent who has closed elbows, which makes it easy for me to get a backhand and arm, and rolling our partner through from a backhand and arm. So instead of breaking our partner down, we're going to roll our partner completely through. Now, you've seen this happen a lot of times. You see times where people hit it, and they look like rock stars. They roll a partner through, and they get their back, and they finish them. And then you see the contrast of that, where people go to roll their partner through and they just fall off completely and end up in like bottom north south. Okay, so let's look at the key mechanics on what we need to achieve and what goals we have when we're looking to roll our partner through. So we're going to come in and put a backhand arm in place. All right. Now, what the move is supposed to look like is we put our partner's forehead down to the floor. We walk to the side. We roll our partner through and we get hooks into place. Okay. When I do this, the couple prerequisites that we need in order to achieve this move is to get a strong connection of our hands to our partner's chest. So we have nice high hands, and the correlation between our hands and we have a strong almost connection between our hands and our chin. Okay. The further our hands are from our chin, the looser the circle is going to be around our partner's upper body. Okay. I need to take my chin and put it over my partner's far trap muscle, like so that I can get the tightest connection possible between my chin and my own hands. If I try to do this move and my chin is far away from my hands, my shoulder will always slip off my partner's head and I'll fall off. So I bring my chin down to my partner's far trap muscle, and I take my hands up to my partner's far shoulder. This gives us tight connection now of my chin to my hands the best I can, and gives me a nice closed circle around my partner's head and arm. Now I take my shoulder and I connect it to the back of my partner's head. Now that I have a tight circle and a wedge on top of my partner's head, I need to make sure that my partner's forehead touches the ground before my forehead does. If any one of these prerequisites are missed, you'll always doom yourself to failure. I need to make sure that, one, I have a strong circle around my partner's head and arm. If my chin is separated from my hands, but everything else is perfect, if I have a wedge behind my partner's head, and I put my partner's forehead on the floor, the circle's too loose and you'll always fall off. If you have a tight circle, but your forehead goes to the floor before your partner's forehead, you'll always fall off. You have to make sure that you have a tight circle around your partner's head and arm with a strong connection of your chin to your hands, like so. A wedge behind your partner's head, and that her head moves to the ground before yours does. Now, when I post my forehead on the floor, I'm going to start walking my body perpendicular to my partner. Initially, start with my back leg behind her hips, and I'm going to start walking so that our two bodies form a T. Once our two bodies are perpendicular, I'm going to open up my back hip and force her chin to her chest so that she's forced into a front roll. So I put her forehead on the floor. I start walking perpendicular. Now, once we're perpendicular, I turn my body and I open up my right leg so that I fall to my right hip and it forces her to a front roll. When she goes to base out, because of the extreme chin to chest action, it makes it very difficult, and now we can easily insert our hooks into place. If at any point our partner brings knees to chest, and I can't insert my hooks, we just rock forward, and now we're in position to throw our hooks into place, and we're in a winning position. So our partner's playing with closed elbows. I feel like she's playing an open turtle, but it's hard for me to start going under and getting claw grips and getting half Nelsons. So we choose to go up and over the shoulders, and we lock in. We can break our partner down, 1, or we can roll our partner through, 2. From here, we've looked at locking our partner down, so we're going to look to roll our partner through by getting our chin over our partner's far shoulder and trap muscle, taking our hands up as high as we can towards our partner's far shoulder so that we can get a strong connection between the distance of our hands and chin. The closer our hands are to our chin, the tighter the circle is going to be. We make sure that our partner's forehead hits the floor before ours. We do this by taking our left shoulder and placing it to the crown of our partner's head. Now, move your hand up. Now, when we both go to fall, her forehead will always hit the ground before mine due to the wedge in the back of her head and the tightness of my circle around her head and arm. Now I come off my 2 knees, I walk perpendicular, and now I open up my right hip and I fall down to my left. And now we're ready to come in and put hooks, body triangle into place, or if our knees are up, we just rock forwards and insert hooks into place, and we're ready to go. What this will look like in more real time as we come through here, get everything into place. Now we're ready to go in to all of our attacks once we have both of our hooks / body triangle in place. So now let's talk about using strangles to knock our partner down to a hip. Okay, you have to remember that in our sport, we have the ability to actually finish our partner from these positions. So we have to be able to at least attack our partner's neck. When our partner's playing an open turtle, my partner has a primary and a secondary defensive hand. Okay, I'm sure you guys have at least seen clips of us talking about back attacks, have been to seminars or watched John's entire instructional. If my partner's sitting on her butt, for example, my partner has 2 defensive hands from the back. She's a primary hand and a secondary hand. Okay, a primary hand, her right hand in this case, will do all of the work of stopping both my wrist and my elbow from moving across my partner's body to strangle. No matter how strong I am, if she makes a tight body and my strong hand, there's no way I'm going to strangle my partner from here. But if she replaces her primary hand and puts her secondary hand on my wrist, this will stop my wrist from moving across, but not my elbow from moving across. Okay, so I'll always be able to strangle my partner if she has her secondary hand just on my wrist. It will only delay the action of me getting my hand across because my elbow can still move across and I can still strangle her. Whereas the primary defensive hand will do all the action of stopping me from strangling her, and now she can go into all of her defenses. Okay, so we have a primary and secondary defensive hand. The primary hand will stop both my wrist and my elbow from moving across, and the secondary hand will only stop just my wrist from moving across. Okay, so taking this into consideration, we have a partner with an open turtle, and we lock initially a back, head, and arm. Now, whenever I see my partner attempting to posture up or to do all kinds of things, right, this is where we have a big separation from wrestling. Because when we lock a back, head, and arm, and my partner tries to move into a referee position and come up, now because her hands are on the floor and not her elbows, she has no defensive hands. Okay? So just know that if you guys are playing in a submission grappling context, we don't really use referee position too much because you have no defensive hands. That's why all the wrestlers make fun of us when people snap us down from front headlocks and we fall down to our elbows. Yeah, we fall onto the elbows because we have to have defensive hands in place because it's guillotine dangers. Okay, if we're playing from a front head, for example, and she's on her feet, and I snap her down, and she puts her hands on the floor, now the chances of me moving into a guillotine become much higher because she has no defensive hands in place. So as she goes to circle out now, if I have a high level guillotine, I can easily finish my partner. Whereas if I snap her down, and she immediately falls down to her elbows and puts hands in place, now I can't strangle her. Okay? So there's big differences between playing this position in wrestling and playing this position in jiu-jitsu. Okay, there's a big danger of me finishing people from here. So if I take my partner down, for example, and she moves right to a referee position with her head up and she tries to get up, now I'm just going to strangle her. Okay? This is why I don't see referee position too much work in the sport. Because now I bring one hand in, and now she's playing an open turtle with her hands on the floor, and now my hands come into place. Okay? In freestyle wrestling, if she puts my back on the floor, then she could pin me or create back exposure. It's difficult to play under these rules of wrestling. You can't finish people. But in jiu-jitsu, if I fall my back on the floor and I'm pinned, it doesn't matter. If I'm strangling her, that's great. Okay? So in wrestling, the whole goal is to expose my back to the floor or your opponent's back to the floor. And in our sport, our goal is to expose our opponent's back to us. Okay? Doesn't matter if my back's on the floor. So this is why you typically don't see referee position being played in our sport. It's usually concave shoulders, put everything in, and defensive hands in place. Okay? So just keeping those considerations in mind, we're going to use a strangle hand now to go in and to attack our partner and break our partner down. We're initially going to lock in with the backhand and arm. Now, my partner should have defensive hands in place. Right? If she doesn't, then I'm just going to monitor my partner's wrist and go in and strangle. My partner should have a defensive hand in immediately to defend, and we should be in here. Now, when I go to strip my partner's initial hand off, I have to exploit the weakness of her one-on-one. The weakness of any one-on-one grip is the distance between your thumb and your middle finger. We've all been on people's backs where you feel like they have defensive hands in place and you feel like you're just trying so hard you can't separate your partner's hands. Where she has hands in place, I'm pulling and pushing and I just can't break my partner's grip. It's because most of the time you're pushing into the strength of your partner's grip. You're pushing into the four fingers, okay? If I just simply rotate my palm towards my own chest, now when I push, I exploit the weakness of that grip. So when I go to push your hands off now, I push directly in the space between the two fingers, between the thumb and the middle finger, and not into the four fingers, okay? So now when I go to push, the grip comes off easy. If I just try to push from here, with my palm facing away from my partner, you'll never be able to break anybody's grip. So I have to rotate my hand up and separate. It's the same concept here. She has defensive hands in. I'm going to have my legs up in place. If at any point I see her chin start to rise, she wants to start to build posture, maybe step legs up, maybe she wants to start to stand up exactly like this. Okay, now, whenever I see this and the chin raising, we go in for a strangle. Go back down. I exploit the weakness of her one-on-one by rotating my left hand, my strangle hand in this case, towards my own chest. I strip the grip off. Now I see her chin rising, and we walk our hand up. Now from this position, I have to put weight over my partner's head. There's two ways that we can do this. Number one, we can put a strangle hand in place, and we can put our partner's forehead back to the floor. So if I feel like the head is not so far up where I can still put her head back down and break posture, I put her head to the floor, and now we do the same roll through with a single wrist and a strangle hand. So now I post my head on the floor, I walk perpendicular, and now I roll my partner through, and now you have the option of finishing with one strangle hand in place or extracting and going in with a second strangle hand. So that's if I feel my partner's head is rising, but I can get it back down towards the floor. Now let's say she has defensive hands in place. Her head rises, I throw a strangle hand in, but her head is coming up and she's looking to step legs up. Whenever I see this and I see I can't push her head back down towards the floor, now because there's so much space between the knee and the elbow, I just throw a hook in like so. And now I start to build height. As I look to build height now, I come up and I step onto my foot. Now from here, because my hips are still above my partner's, I can take my hand out and I can lock a full strangle from here. Now wherever my partner chooses to go, it doesn't make a difference. If she falls down, even if she escapes the hips, because I have a full strangle locked, you're gonna finish your partner with a strangle regardless because you have your hands locked already. Okay, so 2 great ways. She puts her hands in. I separate. I feel her starting to bring the hips up, the head up. I throw a strangle hand in. Now from this position, 1, if I can put her head back towards the floor, we do it the same roll that we just did with different grip variations. A single wrist on the far side and a strangle hand in place. When she goes to base out or resist, it's incredibly difficult. Okay. Secondarily, I feel like her head is coming up with so much strength that I can't put her head back on the floor. Whenever I see this, I start to build height. My back leg steps up, and I throw a near hook in. And now wherever she looks to go, I can always follow her, and we can quickly throw under strangle, and then we can look to insert our second hook, or even if our partner escapes the hooks, that makes no difference. We can always finish our partner, whether the hooks come out or not. The main thing is that if I see the head coming up, we keep a strong chest to back connection. Now I step, and now we come up. I recommend going back leg and throwing a near hook in, like so. But you can also stand up behind your partner and just squat, like so. And now you can fall to either side. Now if you want, you can take your what was your back leg and throw it around. Both are very good. Okay, where now you can strangle your partner. Most of the time, because you have the strangle hand on one side, in this case, I'm on the left side of my partner's body. Because I have the strangle hand on the left side, I want to fall to the left side. Okay, not always, but most of the time. The reason being, whenever I go to lock a strangle, in order for me to actually lock my hands, what I need is to be able to extract my elbow to the same axis that my center line lies on. Okay, so when I try to lock a strangle on her from here, I have to extract my right elbow to the same axis that my shoulder line's on, so that my elbow and my shoulders form one straight line, like so. If she's on 2 knees, and I have a strangle hand in, and I throw my left hook in, and I fall left side, it's the easiest thing in the world to extract my right elbow to my shoulder line and punch a strangle in. That's why I recommend falling to the left side. But if you stand up behind your partner, and you throw your right hook in, and you fall down to your right side, now it's difficult to extract your right elbow to your shoulder line. In order to pull your elbow free, you have to sacrifice your head position to pull your elbow back, and now your partner can move the head out and away from you, and you start to run into problems if you don't know what you're doing. Okay? So I recommend when you do this specific move, where you come up, our back leg is up, we throw our left leg around, we fall to this side. Now we can easily extract the hand. But you also have a good option where as your partner's head starts rising, you can start to build height and move behind your partner. Now, you theoretically have an option to throw both legs on. If you want to go in and throw right leg, your partner has no base to the right side. When she has to base the right hand out, she can't. And we can easily throw everything in place and then strangle our partner from here. But just know it is going to be harder to take that right hand out. Worst case scenario, you feel like you can't strangle your partner, so she has defensive hands in place. I'm fighting. If you can't get underneath your partner's shin, then we just switch to a figure 4 backhand and arm, where I'm trying to strangle her and I can't. Then I just grab my partner's wrist and I lock a full figure 4. Or now from here, we can go in and do all the breakdowns that we just looked at. Recover our partner's elbow, where we roll our partner through. We can do all the previous moves by controlling our partner's wrist or just having hands locked. So we can use variations from there. So I feel like I'm trying to strangle my partner. I absolutely can't get underneath my partner's jaw for whatever reason. We just switch in and we use backhand and arm variations, where instead of going with just locked hands, we strip the grip, we go to strangle, we can't strangle, we go to a figure four, backhand and arm, where now we have control of our partner's arm instead. So that as we roll our partner through, it's much easier to strangle. So as I roll my partner through, for example, we get a grip in. Now I have top hand position, and it makes it easy for me to shoot my hand across and attempt to strangle my partner. Okay, so just so you guys know, if you try to fight hands in and you can't get it, just switch to a figure four, backhand and arm, so that when you do actually get your hooks in, it's much easier to finish your partner from there. All right, so now we're going to look at someone with open elbows that denies me the ability to lock a head and arm. All right, so as we talked about, we have a dilemma between open elbows and closed elbows. We've looked at everything so far with locking backhand and arms over my partner's shoulders. Now, as we talked about also, when we have backhand and arms, we always have to make sure that my partner is either broken down to an unathletic position or that I don't have hooks in. Okay, if I have a hook in, I don't ever go with a backhand and arm unless my partner is broken down to a hip or sitting on her butt. I don't want to have a backhand and arm in and have her in a turtle position and then 4-point and me fall off. Okay, so when we talk about going in underneath our partner's arms, we can go in and use a couple of different grips. When I try to go up and over my partner's body and I feel like she's doing a good job of keeping an open elbow and connecting the ear down and I feel like I can't get through, we can use a claw grip, number one, or if I feel her head's down and it's hard for me to get a strong connection with the backhand arm, she's doing a good job of keeping the head down, I feel like I can't get my hand inside, I can come through and I can put a half Nelson in. Now when I put a half Nelson or with a claw, I can use this to start to insert my first hook. With the half Nelson, we can look to start turning our partner by taking the chin down to the near shoulder and looking to lift the elbow like so. What this does is it forces my partner to start to open up her turtle. I don't really want to turn her to move into side control. I really just want to expose her back. So I start to thread to turn her, and as she opens up her turtle, now it makes it easy for me to go in and capture a far wrist. Now what I want to look to do is I want to look to insert my left knee, in this case, my near knee, inside her two knees. Now, I start to blade my knee in, so now I'm rearward facing. When she goes to move from here, because I have control of the head, even if she 4-points, it's hard for me to fall off because I have control of my partner's head. Now what I look to start doing is fishing for my partner's ankle with my right ankle and pulling her ankle out like so. So that now I can pull her leg up on top of mine and shoot my first hook into place. And now as my first hook is in, when she goes to move around from here, I can easily base up and we have one hook in and we're ready to play right from there. Okay? So with the power half, I come in here, we're playing, we have a far wrist, we have a single wrist, we have a leg stepped up. I shoot my hand through and we come through the space and we start to put a power half into place. Now, if she doesn't do anything from here, she starts getting turned and she ends up in bottom side control. As she goes to do that, as she goes to open up her turtle, we have an option one of inserting a knee inside our partner's two knees, facing our partner's hips. And when she goes to move around from here, it's incredibly difficult because I have control of my partner's head. Now I pull my partner forward with my right elbow and I expose that ankle. Once I expose the ankle, I bow the ankle out. I start to catch with my heel and I lift. Once I lift, I start to fall and insert my hook. And now if your partner falls towards you, you switch to a backhand and arm or double underhooks. Or if your partner moves back to a turtle position, you just follow her up. Now you have one hook in place. If you feel like for whatever reason you're having a hard time exposing your partner's ankle and you feel like you just can't get to the ankle, what I start to look to do from here is to really open up my partner's elbow. I raise my hips and I just insert my left hook. The reason I can do this is because you can always force your partner to have an open elbow. When she goes to close that left elbow now, I can always lift it enough to insert my left leg, and now I have a hook in place. Okay, so 2 great methods with the half Nelson. As we come in initially, we catch a far wrist. Now we come through. If we can get to a half Nelson, we come through and we split the ear and the shoulder. And now we lock. Now we can do one where we go in and we face towards our partner's hips. So we step right leg up, we slide our knee in, and then we insert the knee like so. When our partner goes to shake us off from here, it's difficult because she can't create any movement to make me fall off the front because I have control of the long end of the lever at the top of her head. Now I'm completely locked into her 2 shoulders, controlling her entire shoulder line. And now I like to pull her body forward with my right elbow, extending my right arm and pulling everything forward and exposing the heel. Now, when she goes to move around from here, I use a pass off to my left leg, where now we come through and we get everything into position. If I feel like for whatever reason you're having difficulty with that, I just start to raise my hips up. I open up the elbow. I shoot a hook into place. And now we're ready to go in and attack our partner's back. So that's with the half Nelson. Now we start to move to a claw. Start to put a claw in place. And now we have 1 claw and a single wrist far side. Once we have a single wrist far side, we're going to start to do a very similar transitions where I either lean forwards and open up my elbow, where now I can take my hips and disconnect them from my partners to raise my hips to insert a hook. Or if I feel like she's really closing her left elbow and I can't open up the elbow, I bring my left knee up and I drive it down and I insert it inside my partner's hip. Now, as I open up my left elbow, I expose my partner's ankle by pulling everything forward. I expose the ankle, and I create a strong connection, a closed circle around my partner's leg. So I have a claw, I have a far wrist, and I have a connection between my partner's legs. Now when she goes to free her left leg, I just start to stack my leg off my partner, making a pass off. Left leg feeds over. Now we're in a cross-body ride, ready to go into attacks on our partner's back, a high ball ride ready to take our partner's back, and 2 hooks in. Now we can enter into 2 hooks and a body triangle. So we have a claw grip this time. If I try to go up and over my partner's shoulders, she does a good job of keeping an open elbow, and I feel like I can't get in. So I reach through, we go in claw and far wrist. If I feel like I can open my partner's elbow just briefly enough, I can step my hook in. If I feel like I can't open my partner's elbow at all, and she does a good job of pulling that elbow down hard, now from here, I have to start to go into a rearward facing attack with a claw grip. So I use frontward facing grips, but I turn my hips in the opposite direction. So I take my left knee, I put it in the pocket of my partner's hip, and now when I rotate towards my partner's hips, the knee inserts. Now I use an opening of the left elbow and a pulling forwards of the right elbow to expose my partner's ankle. When she tries to sit back heavily on the ankle, you can always expose it. Now I create a strong connection of my 2 legs together and make a pass off from my right heel to my left leg, and now my hook's in. Now we have 1 hook inserted, and then we get 2 hooks inserted. So using a regular half Nelson to insert a hook by either opening up the elbow or throwing a leg to the inside, or using frontward facing grips, where we have upper body grips, but turning our hips to face our partner's hips to insert legs like we did before with the reverse tight waist. Okay, so a variation of the reverse tight waist. Instead of using a reverse tight waist and rearward facing grips, we use frontward facing grips and upper body control with our hands, but we face our hips towards our partner's hips, and we use that to expose our first hook. So now let's look at a situation where we have a partner in an open turtle. I feel like it's going to be difficult for me to be able to get my hands into a backhanded arm. Okay, every time I try to lock into a backhanded arm, she's fighting my hand. She takes her right hand and she covers my hand maybe like this. So I can't lock my hands. She connects her ear to her shoulder on this side. I feel like it's hard for me to fight my hands in. Now I feel like I'm trying to go in for a half Nelson, but it's hard for me to start splitting my partner's ear and shoulder connection with a half. When I go to transfer into a claw grip, she moves her ear to the other side. And every time I go to move, she moves her head back and forth. I feel like I can't get anything going here, and it's just taking too much time, and my partner's really moving to go to an escape. Whenever I see this, we're just going to reach out and capture our partner's near wrist, like so. Now, once I capture my partner's near wrist, and I have control of my partner's far hip, you have a form of diagonal control. Now, is it robust, like having a hook inside and control of your partner's far wrist? Absolutely not. But it is some kind of diagonal control where you can control your partner's left shoulder in this case, ranging down to your right hip. Okay, so you do have a little bit of control of your partner from here, but any stripping of one of those grips is going to completely negate your ability to control the entire body. If she reaches back, for example, with her right hand and strips your hand off, then you lost diagonal control. If she extends her left hand hard and you lost the wrist, now you lost diagonal control. Whereas if you have control of your partner with a hook inside, it's much harder for her to clear that hook than it is for her to clear any grips that we're using now. So I'm going to go in. I'm going to get to my partner's near wrist, and if I can, my partner's near hand. Okay, if I have the meat of the hand, when she goes to extend her hand from here, it becomes very difficult. Now what I'm going to look to do is I'm going to look to suck my partner's elbow in the best I can towards my partner's body to force her elbow into a closed elbow position. Once I do this, I'm going to immediately look to bring my knee up. When she goes to reopen the elbow, she can't. And now, I'm going to look to knock my partner down. Once again, not in this direction, pulling along the hip line, but pulling over the shoulder. So I'm going to pull and knock my partner down. Now, just rotate. Now, what I'm going to do from here is contingent upon, again, my partner's elbow position. If I feel my partner has a closed elbow, we're going to come through and we're going to go in with a claw on my partner's neck, where I throw my top hook in. We throw our leg up, and now we look to roll across to our right hip. If my partner has an open elbow where I can get underneath it, but I can't get to the far trap, I go underneath the elbow and she closes it right away. Then I go half claw and I glue my ear to my partner's rear deltoid. So when she goes to take her elbow back and wrap my head, she can't. And I stay here and she just wraps around my head. Now she's in a pinning position and not a back taking position. So I come in with a half claw, I slide my knee up. When she goes to bring her back to the floor, she can't. And now I pull the half claw back to my own hip with my right elbow. I sit my partner up. Now we're seated and ready to throw our hooks into place. And best of all, if she has an open top elbow, I come in and I get a full claw. Where now when she goes to open up, bring her back to the floor, I control my partner's head and arm. I throw my knee up and then I pull my partner across and I look to insert my hooks from a seated position, or if I preemptively put my hook in before I fell back, now I have one hook in already and we're ready to go in and attack our partner's back. All right, so this is a very robust position using a single wrist on your partner's open turtle to knock your partner down, to initially go in and put hooks in. So we start with an open turtle. We try to go with the backhanded arm, your partner's stopping you. Now, keep in mind, if your partner stays in this position, eventually you're going to be able to get to a backhand and arm or a claw grip or whatever you want from here. The issue is no one who's good is staying stagnant in a turtle position. They're constantly moving, looking to stand up, looking to roll to guard. So you only have a few seconds here to be able to get your grips and knock your partner down to an unathletic position. All right, if she just stays here and she fights, eventually I can lock my hands. The issue is when she's looking to go and fight her hands in from here, the whole time I'm moving out and away from her. All right, she's never going to be in a position where she just can fight and I'm just fighting my hands from here. And then eventually she locks her hands. She has me in a turtle position and she's looking to get her hands in place. I'm always looking to square up or do some kind of roll where I roll through my re-guard, or looking to immediately come through and stand up and get away. All right. So there's not going to be time from here for you to fiddle around with what your hand position is. You kind of just have to take what is available and look to immediately off balance your partner so they can't go into their escapes. So if I feel like she's open turtle, I'm trying to put a backhand arm in, she defends. I go to hit a power half Nelson or a claw, I can't get through. I feel like she's blocking my defensive hand. I can't get to a claw, I can't get to a power half, I just go in and go near wrist. Now as she's going to defend, I break her down. And now we play with either a half claw, a full claw, or a claw over the shoulder. We'll just start creating back exposure and taking our partner's back. So we use a near wrist to take away our partner's base of support from an open turtle. Okay? What we have to do is think about an open turtle as 4 legs of a chair or table. Okay? Right now, if I push side to side, front to back, shoulder to hip, or shoulder to hip, she's very stable. But the second you cut off one of those legs, now when you push hip to shoulder, you can off balance your partner very easily. Okay? So the second you take away a base of support, whether it's an elbow or a hand, or blocking a knee, you can knock your partner down very easily. Okay, same thing from a 4-point. Shoot 4 points, diagonally, front to back, back to front, side to side, front to back. She's very stable. But the second you take a hand out, for example, and you push someone over the shoulder, they fall very easily. Okay? So what we're doing here is just essentially thinking about the turtle position as a table with 4 limbs. The second I go in and I take one of those limbs away, your partner falls over very easily, and you can incrementally break your partner down to unathletic positions. And that's what we're looking to do. So what we've been looking at is frontwards and rearwards facing attacks when we're on the side of our opponent. Okay, now we're going to be looking at attacks from when we're directly behind our opponent. Okay, when we work from behind our opponent, we typically like to use rear body locks and double wrist rides. Okay, and we could use rear chest locks, but move out to the side when we use rear chest locks. If you guys watched an ADCC, when I took Hulk's back, it was from a position where I had a rear body lock and I used open elbows to open up his elbows to insert my first hook. And then once my first hook was in, I used a power half to insert my second hook. All right, you guys can go back and reference that. Also, I did a breakdown of it on my last instructional, My Evolution, Your Revolution. So you guys can check that out if you want the full the full diagnostic. When I'm behind my partner, let's just get something straight. It's harder for my partner to roll to a guard, okay? Because I'm directly behind my partner and it gives me the ability to pick which side I want to go to very quickly. So for example, if I'm playing behind my partner, if she wants to sit to guard and falls to her left hip, all I have to do is make a slight adjustment when she goes to sit to her hip and slide my knee underneath my partner's leg, and now I can easily take my partner's back. If I'm behind my partner and she goes to sit to her right hip and sit to guard, I can easily take my partner's back. Okay, so it's very hard for your partner to sit to guard when you're directly behind them. But because your head is nowhere near their head, it's much easier for them to stand directly up. and get away from you. So because my head is nowhere near my partner's, if she just pops her head up, looks to step up her leg and get up, now she can stand up, and now we're in standing position again. Okay? So it has advantages and disadvantages. While it's much easier to take my partner's back when she tries to sit to a guard, which you see a lot in jiu-jitsu, it's also much harder to keep my partner down on the floor, which you see wrestlers trying to just stand up. Okay? And in addition, if she goes to a referee position, because I'm so far away from the head, there's no real immediate strangle. I can't, like when I'm on the side of her, I'm ready to throw my hand in. But if I'm back here and I have a rear body lock, I first have to pick a side and then throw a hand in. And in that second's time, as I go to throw a strangle in, she can go back down and defend. Okay? So those are the advantages and disadvantages to both. We're going to look at using a rear body lock and a double rear wrist to insert our first hook. Okay, so she's going to be down like so. We can use a rear body lock and move up to a rear chest lock like I did with Hulk, or we can use two wrists like so. The idea here is that I'm going to use my elbows to open up my partner's elbows to insert one hook. And again, you watch this to Hulk take his back in the last couple minutes. I start with a rear body lock initially, and I move up to a rear chest lock. As I do this, my head moves off to one side, and I use my elbow, whichever elbow you want, to open my partner's elbow, and then I just raise my hips and insert my first hook. It's as simple as it looks. Okay. What this does is it allows me to force my partner into an open elbow position. If she closes her elbows, I can always lean forward and bump the elbow forward just enough to insert a hook. And now I have one hook in, and we can easily attack our partner's back with all the power halves and claws and breaking the partner down from there. Okay? And we can do this just as easily with two wrists. All right? So now I'm up on my two legs, I'm athletic. The two wrists glue me to my partner's back, chest to back. So once again, if she tries to roll to guard to either side, we can easily follow our partner and then throw our arm over and go for attacks. Right? So it's not in her best interest to sit to guard. It's in her best interest to stand up. But if she's here for any more than a few seconds, we go in, we take double wrists, and we're playing in here. Now we lean forward, our head moves off center to the opposite shoulder. If I want to throw a left or a right hook in, I want to move my head over to the left shoulder. As my head comes over to the left shoulder, I open up my right elbow, like so. I just step inside. Now I put my knee in the floor, and we're ready to go into all of our attacks. So whether we work from a rear body lock or two wrists, we move from a rear body lock to a rear chest lock, and we just bump everything forward. Now we just step, and we're inside. Or we use two wrists, rotate. We're in here, we bump, and we insert. Now we're ready to go. Okay? It looks pretty simple. It is pretty simple, and it's very effective. Like we talked about, when we're behind our partner in a rear body lock, it doesn't make sense for them to try to roll to a guard. Because you're mobile and your center lines are both aligned, it makes it easy for you to quickly pick a side, monitor where they're going, and slide your knee and like underneath their hips and easily take their back. What makes sense is for them to try to stand up and get away from you. Okay? So as your partner goes to stand up, they can use two methods of standing up. They can stand up with their head first, or they can stand up with their legs first, or with their hips first. So if she's behind me, and she has a rear body lock, and she's directly behind me, I can monitor hands, and I can look to go legs first, where I start to build up, like so, to one leg, where I post a hand, and I post a leg. I start to create motion. I can't just go two hands in my partner's hands, because now if she just pushes me forward, I have to post a hand in my face is going to hit the floor. So I have to post one hand and look to step a leg up. I come up to a standing position. Or if I'm going to go hips first, I have to lean forwards, bring my head down, and start to 4-point so I can build base. And now I can either roll into the legs, or I can step the leg forwards and then build up a second way. Okay? So I either have to go just with no partner, I either have to go hands, and then a foot, or I have to go 2 hands coming forwards, head leaning forwards, up to a 4-point, and then I can start to go into my attacks coming up and going into base, okay? So knowing this, if my partner chooses to go head first, my responsibility is to always run to the side of the downed leg, okay? What this means is when my partner goes to stand up, she goes to post the leg up. Here, if I go to run to my partner's left hip, she can always base her left leg out. I can never knock my partner down. But if I choose to run to the opposite side, now I can always pull my partner down over that hip because she has no base of support. So she goes to monitor my hands. I lock my hands in a rear body lock. The second she goes to get up, I step my opposite leg up. So she goes left leg, I go right leg. Now, the second she goes to stand up, I immediately pop up with her, and I just run to the right hip, and I knock my partner back down. Now, she has 2 choices. She can fall down to an elbow, in which case I capture my partner's knee or wrist. Now we can go into a claw or any of the previous moves we looked at. Or she can come back to a turtle by scissoring the legs, and now we insert our first hook, okay? So when she goes to stand head first, I always run to the opposite side of the leg that she's stepping up. So we're in a rear body lock. She immediately pops up and she goes left leg up. If I initially go left leg up, it makes it hard for me to start to move out to this side. Now as we both go to step our right legs up, it makes it difficult for me to be able to off balance her. The reason being, I have to lean my weight to my left leg in order to step up my right leg. So as I lean my weight, she's also leaning her weight. And now as we both get up, now we both are standing. So I make sure that I always go opposite leg first. So now as we both go to lean weight, I have to lean weight onto my right leg to stand up. As I lean weight onto my right leg, it makes it easy for me to put weight over my partner's right leg as well. So as she goes to step her right leg up and I go to step my left leg up, I always have weight over the leg. If we both go same side leg, when we both go to get up, we both stand up. Okay? If I push myself over this way to put weight over my partner's hip, yeah, I can put weight over my partner's hip, but I also can't get up, so I can't run to the hip. Now if she posts her right hand on the floor, and I go to step my right leg up and I try to knock her down, we both go to get up. We look clumsy, and you both get up at the same time. Whereas, if she goes to step left leg up, I go right leg up. Now as we both go to get up, you can always knock your partner down. Now, if she falls to the elbow, you capture the wrist. If she stays on the hand and she goes to get up, we get our first hook in place. Now we're ready to go into attacks. Okay? So that's head first. So right here, we're in a rear body lock. She's on 2 elbows. I'm looking initially to go double wrist or put a hook in. She goes to stand up. We set our partner down. Now we're ready to attack. Okay, again, breaking our partner down to an unathletic position. This time, my partner chooses to go hips first. Okay? So we're in a rear body lock. If she goes hips first, and she pops up and I stay on her hips, there's no reason why she can't bring her feet forwards and stand completely up. So the second, I see her moving to a 4-point. I go from one side, and you can pick either side. As she pops up, we run to a side, and we go to a rear chest lock. Here. And now we put weight over our partner's head by bringing our hands up by the chin and our head next to our partner's head. Now when she goes to stand up, it becomes much more difficult. Now, in our sport, a lot of times our opponents are, or in our sport and in mixed martial arts, a lot of times our partners are shirtless, very sweaty, and a lot of times greased. So if I unlock my hands to do spiral rides, you have a big chance of having slippage when you try to connect to your partner's body. So a much better way to do spiral rides against shirtless opponents is by using locked hands, okay? Where I keep my hands locked and I spiral ride my partner down. So as she goes to stand up, we're in here. Now, I'm going to run towards my partner's head, jump to my knees, and my two elbows are going to open like so. So I open my right elbow, in this case, into my partner's right hand, and I pull my partner's hip with my left elbow. Right, so I'm taking her base of support out in this direction and cracking down the hip over the right shoulder. So as she goes to stay based out, we have the 10-finger grip, we have locked hands. As she goes to stay strong base and stand up, we knock our partner down to a hip. Now, once again, we can go in and gather our partner's knee or wrist and put her down to her shoulder and go into our claw game. Or, as she goes to get up, we cover the hips. Now we come through and we insert our hooks into place and we're ready to go. Okay? So, assuming my partner goes to stand up, we come in here. Now, we take our partner's base of support out at the right hand by opening up the right elbow, and we crack down the left hip with our left elbow. As we do this, we keep our hands locked, and we jump to our knees, and we sit our partner down. Now we come in and we go to the knee or wrist, or if she comes up, knee or hook, and now we're back to square one, ready to attack. So 2 ways to sit our partner down. If she stands up with the legs first, head first, then we go and we run to the opposite side of her up leg. We run to the downside leg. So she steps up left leg, we run to right hip. If she goes hips first, we lock hands, we go to a rear chest lock and go lock hand spiral run.